We're here. So excited. This is a special conversation, Audible Identities. It is presented by Dublab and Grand Park, part of the We Rise happening. Dublab and Tanya Aguinega curated an installation that's up at Grand Park as part of the We Rise initiative called Celebration Spectrum. You can check it out. It's up through the end of the long holiday weekend through May 31st. If you visit whywerise.la, that's the place you can get full info, but a beautiful deconstructed party rolling across the park and really a celebration of celebrations and a space to explore joy and come together. Speaking of joy, we have some joyful humans here who inspire me so much that I'm so glad to know and to call friends and collaborators. And each of these incredible artists and music minds are part of the Celebration Spectrum installation at Grand Park. And happy to have each of them here today. We have Anna Luisa Petrisko, an incredible, super multi-dimensional artist on many levels. We'll dive into that, but happy to have Anna Luisa here. We have Maral, a producer, a DJ, a spark of joy in Los Angeles. And we have Xandão, a cultural anthropologist, a DJ, a record label founder, and just a great human. So happy to have all of you here with us. Yay, welcome.
Yay, thank you.
We're happy to be here.
Yeah. And we're creeping towards like the moment where we can all be in person together. So, this is Celebration Spectrum is in a way celebrating what we couldn't do, these kind of the way that Los Angeles celebrates in these different kind of diverse forms of celebration. And it's coming back, and so we're feeling that this is warming up. So consider this the warm up party for the future celebrations in a way. But we're gonna dive into some music. We're gonna have some conversation about each of your backgrounds and your work in Los Angeles and beyond. But I think a nice way, because the connective tissue and the tie for why we're all here is each of you offered incredible DJ mixes for a piece of Celebration Spectrum called the Celebration Tapestry, which is a vibrant collection of diverse kind of decor and pieces of the way that the different communities of Los Angeles celebrate. And we created a tapestry. Under that tapestry by Tanya Aguinega, there are 12 hours of DJ mixes that play each and every day, and in fact, just continue to loop. So anytime you want to go down to the park, you can experience them. But I'd love for each of you to introduce your DJ mix, the kind of theme of it, and that'll be a nice way to kind of open up and talk about your various work. Anna Luisa Petrisco, would you mind introducing us to the sounds that you offered?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. So yeah, Dublab and Frosty asked me to make a mix focusing on music from the Philippines and the Filipino diaspora, where my heritage is from. And just we talked about, it's a party, it's a celebration, and like Filipino music is rich with this just like optimistic, bubbly, buoyant sort of party anthems. So it wasn't hard to find the material to kind of keep it in that vibe. And yeah, I went with like kind of OPM music, which is, original Filipino music, the term
Hmm.
coined for music kind of from the 70s through the 90s, kind of pop music and ballads, and then included kind of peppered in some contemporary music that spans sort of the pop vibe to like a little bit more experimental, avant-garde, kind of still using Filipino sensibilities. And yeah, I love the word tapestry that we're using to describe the installation. And if you haven't been to the installation, definitely check it out because it's so gorgeous and it's just really uplifting. And yeah, I think of Filipino music as this sort of tapestry, the sort of patchwork of indigeneity and all of the influences from colonizers for better or worse, but Spanish
Mhm.
American influences, and then its own like Filipino sensibility that's just like really cultural of like generosity and optimism and melodrama, all of these sort of over the top emotions. So yeah, I don't know. It was just fun. I
I
was
love
happy
how
to make
you
it.
offer that full kind of continuum, you know, that it was kind of dipping into the OPM and bringing it to the contemporary. And there were so many new discoveries for me. And so it was so beautiful to be able to hear all of that. And I just imagine with all of these, you know, we're engaging with people. There's passerby, you know, people, and often this is a space where there's courtrooms and courthouses, and often again people usually if you're stepping into a courthouse you're probably like it's not a joyful experience usually I would imagine maybe unless you're really sadistic but I think that you know or people we actually saw somebody yesterday who came out of the courthouse and she was jumping for joy and saying I won and she was so happy and we wanted to congratulate her but we weren't sure you know she could have been on the wrong side of the law. We're not sure. So we took a very even approach. But I love the idea of, you know, people who might have a connection to the Filipino diaspora or not to be able to kind of be reached, you know, by this music. Do you have a favorite memory or something non-music related or music related, I guess, about Filipino kind of celebrations that you hold true or something that you look forward to family wise that's part of the kind of fabric of celebration within your cultural heritage?
Yeah, I mean, every day, all day. I mean, like all the stereotypes about Filipinos are like in my case true. You know, like we really do love to have family parties, eat a ton of food, do karaoke, and like it's like at least in my case it's not a lie. So I don't know. I guess it's just the way of life.
Sign me up.
Just,
I'm down.
you're invited to the
And
next one, Frost.
Maral and Xandão, have you been to a good Filipino party before?
I haven't. I
Unfortunately not.
wish.
You're
Okay, so
all
you're
invited.
invited too, I guess. Perfect. Amazing. How about you, Maral? Can you introduce us to your mix that you made for Celebration Spectrum?
Well, I thought it was funny that, Anna's mix is about just like, how her culture is so celebratory and so joyous. And when I was making my mix, it was kind of hard to find like truly joyous songs because most Persian music has like a sense of sadness in it, even when it's celebratory or when it's potentially joyful. There's always like actually just like a like undertone of sadness, even in the joyful. Like, there's a lot of love songs in my playlist, and I was talking to my mom about this. I was like, what does this word mean exactly? And she was just like, it just means like your stomach is being ripped apart and you are just so in love that you feel like you're gonna die. You know what I mean? So it's just like, very dramatic, but dramatic in like a kind of melancholy way. So,
Yeah.
I did some digging. I found some songs that I think really celebrated springtime, and that is a
Mm,
special time for Persians and Iranians. That's when Persian New Year is. So there is a lot of like songs that celebrate blooming and nature and stuff like that. And those I feel that pure happiness in. But the love songs within this playlist, they're all like kind of like, you know, I love you so much, but you're far away. We're almost so close. Like there's always this feeling of like being
mm,
separated from your love. And I think that's something that is ingrained in Iranian culture and in Iranians in general, this feeling of like being separated from something you love and yeah, that struggle of getting to what you love, but also appreciating that love. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Also, I mean, there's a story of displacement with so many diasporas in the Iranian American, you know, post revolution, you know, the Los Angeles, I guess we reaped the benefit, you know, in a way it was difficult, but like we have such a rich, you know, Iranian American Persian culture here that we're so thankful for, but it came from displacement. And so that's also bittersweet. Maybe the longing for home, you know, when you're away, the idea of, you know, the nature and the inspiration that comes from there. So I can imagine it, you know, ingrained in pre-revolution music and deep kind of classical music, but also the recent kind of explorations. And you're currently producing music so defined by your heritage and these kind of very fresh but re-examinations of kind of deep history. So I imagine you fold some of that into your work.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I'm always thinking about, the history of Iran, pre-revolution, like how so much of our history was struggling to keep our identity. You know what I mean? Like, in the long time ago, ancient times, we're invaded by the Arabs, and they were trying to get rid of our whole culture, and we're burning books, getting rid of all the music, and there was like this whole period of Iranian culture where we had to cultivate and save our culture in secret. And so much of our classical music, our poetry comes from that time period of like trying to keep our culture. And we were able to keep our culture through all these different invasions, and like still really, I feel like Iranians, wherever they are in the world, are able to, uphold these traditions that have or come from ancient times. And I think that really impacts how I approach my music making, because I want to pass on these traditions, or like these melodies and these feelings that everyone inherently has being Iranian. So yeah, I'm definitely trying to convey the history and like, yeah, the
Amazing.
struggle, but at the same time, the appreciation and just like, yeah, just love of our culture.
Yeah. Shout out to the archivists and the people who kind of maintain and keep these things alive, but also the musicians and DJs and kind of archivists who are not doing it from an academic. I mean, shout outs to those as well. I mean, it's beautiful, but like, I think that there's almost this kind of form of kind of flowing into your work and your output, whether it be writing or recording or DJing or et cetera, where you can pass on these things and preserve them. And so it's really wonderful to see. One of the Nuruz kind of uh, traditions or activities is jumping over a bonfire, right? That happens.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
I imagine, I
that's
think
like a
Los Angeles.
yeah.
Can you tell us about that? I think it's fun, the clashing of, or like the coexistence of cultures in Los Angeles. I know that it was at Dockweiler Beach, that was kind of a spot that it
Mhm.
was happening. But I like the idea of, somebody who is maybe a recent Korean immigrant, who has enjoyed a nice, taco for dinner, and then, maybe gone to get, like delicious Filipino kind of dessert, and then finds themselves walking down the beach and sees people jumping over bonfires. That's possible in LA.
It's pretty wild. Yeah, I mean, that's my favorite part of LA is getting to kind of delve into everyone's culture, even by accident. Like that's really the
Totally.
special part about it is like the accidental discoveries and learning that you do just by existing in this city. But
Yeah.
yeah, that specific holiday is based in Zoroastrian traditions. Just like almost every single Persian holiday, it's based in Zoroastrian traditions and nature and just like all that colliding together that based on like solstices and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
again, very in tune with like what our culture is about is like following nature and like using that as our guide and like influence.
Amazing. Well, I if I encounter it, I'm ready to jump. I'm ready to do the leap. And I think
Next time
that,
you're coming.
yeah, I encourage. I mean,
I'll
it
invite
is
you to
nice to
the next
have
round.
people interacting.
Yeah.
Shandao, can you shine some light into the sounds that you assembled for Celebration Spectrum? It's a lovely mix. Love to hear more about it.
So my mix was made, or I made my mix from records that I've picked up mostly in Mexico, and I focus on cumbia, which is a genre of music with roots in Colombia, where it kind of mixes Afro-Colombian and also indigenous instruments. But what's really fascinating to me, there's sort of like multiple levels of diaspora happening, is that when the music started to be played in Mexico City, at small kind of outdoor parties called bailes in mostly the kind of lower class communities in the city, the DJ started playing it at a slower speed And then groups began singing the music slower and it became bassier. And they said that this was done to kind of fit the rhythm of and the flavor that people liked in Mexico City. So I start the mix with a song by Los Angeles Azules, which is one of the original cumbia sonidera groups. And I move to play more contemporary music by Grupo Qual and other Mexican groups. And then what's great about the music and why I thought about the music as a kind of a fitting for this space is that it's dance music. It's music to move your body to. So through hearing certain songs, starting from the 70s, 60s until today, I hope to spark memories in listeners of celebrations that they've experienced and participated in bailes, dances, sometimes with huge sound systems, sometimes in a backyard with a barbecue, and to remind them kind of what it feels like to be in a crowd of people trying to get towards the stage to watch Sonido La Changa from Mexico City or Grupo Qual, and what it feels like to dance with partners, friends, family, strangers, and to remember some of that kind of feeling of celebration.
It's such a unique, I love this kind of an alternate reality, even just the slowing down in the music and modifying it to kind of speak, more clearly or loudly to a specific crowd who's kind of like, it's almost like they're making it their own, and I think that music and art and culture is I think there are people who consider it precious. I consider it precious because it's something to experiment with and to progress and evolve and to make your own or to share. So the cumbia sonidera culture is so incredible, this sort of new traditions that evolve with a root in sound. Do you, for you personally, the slowed down version, the cumbia sonidera and the more rebajada kind of style, what do you like about that? And also, do you know why that resonated on those sound systems and in that those dances in the bailes?
What I like about it is that it's bassy, that also the music is not that hard to dance to. It's kind of welcoming to almost anybody. It's not like salsa or tango where you really have to know what you're doing if you're even going to step on the dance floor. So it's kind of a little bit more democratic in that way. And people in Mexico and also the Mexican diaspora in the US say what they like about the rhythm is just that it has more flavor for them, or that it fits the place where the music is being played. And I think this is sort of occurring to me now, but I think also this tradition that emerged in Mexico of the saludos, the shout outs, where the sound system DJ, who's not just a DJ, but who's also talking in the microphone, who's also kind of running the sound system and being the sound engineer. These saludos are shout outs where people in the crowd or people over Facebook or Messenger will ask to, call out to family and friends, sometimes at the party, but mostly who are not there. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of what Maral was saying about the distances and the isolation and the ways that people are not able to be physically next to each other often, even if they love each other very much. And the saludos are, I think, a way of dealing with some of the loneliness and the suffering of immigrant communities and the separation that they have. And it creates a moment of connection through the shout outs that are then either heard live on Facebook or something like that, or in the past were recorded on cassette tapes and CDs that would then circulate throughout, everywhere from MacArthur Park to Mexico City or Pilsen in Chicago to Puebla, really kind of all over. And these shout outs become an archive of feeling, and I think and also an archive of the kinship and the ways in which people have traveled.
Absolutely. In Los Angeles, again, we're this place that has, made home for so many people, but also people's kind of heart home, often soul home, is not here. And so it's this idea of sacrifice to be here, and the people who are energizing the city and keeping a lot of the fabric of our city together, so far from home and those who they love, but these forms of sending communication. You produced an incredible compilation called Un Saludo, and I believe we have a photo of you and Vicente Pedraza, and would love to show that. There's this photo of both of you. Can you briefly explain this project, and then maybe we're going to start hearing some music. And I also love, just a side note, like I start to think of like these other hybrid forms, and could there be I imagine like Farsi saludos, over cumbia beats, or like a Filipino kind of like twist on it. Like it just seems like all of these things could be applicable in every level, and this idea of kind of cross pollination and culture. Have either of you, Maral or Ana Luisa, been to a cumbia sonidera party?
Well, I was super influenced by saludos and cumbia in general. Like when I moved to LA, I like started getting really into it because I was hearing it everywhere, and I feel like what really resonated with me was the saludos and that feeling of longing that I felt in them, even though I don't understand Spanish. But I just became super obsessed with that sound and like the dirty delay and the distortion on the mic. Like it's a cool vibe for sure.
So cool. So we're hearing a bit of this, the Grupo Qual, right?
This song is Grupo Qual, Cumbia de la Chanda.
Let's hear a minute of this. We'll dance.
Ya llegué.
Shout out to Abuelita.
That's,
you got to shout out to Abuelita.
He's recognizing his family. So Un Saludo is a compilation, Un Saludo Mexican Sound System Cumbia in LA, and I collaborated with and worked with Vicente Pedraza, who is the owner of Discos Barba Azul, which was one of the largest cumbia labels in the early to mid 2000s. And what's amazing is that, what's inspiring is that most of the bands who he worked with were in Mexico, but he was based in downtown LA on Broadway. He had a little shop there, and actually we saw some images of Fiesta Broadway, which was a party on in front of his store, and he brought sonideros to play there, and people were coming from all over the US to be able to dance in the street because it felt like Mexico to them. So the compilation kind of highlights how LA and Mexico are connected through music, and through Vicente Pedraza, I met the musicians who are part of Grupo Qual. They're one of the more kind of popular bands that tour in the US, or before the pandemic, they were touring in the US sometimes 6 months out of the year. And they are in a kind of lineage of musicians in cumbia. The kind of father and uncles of the main singer and also the main singer himself, Angel Pedraza, were all in this group called Supergrupo Colombia, which in the 70s was, as you can hear by their name, they're trying to pretend that they're from Colombia, but they're innovating Colombian music in the Mexican style. And the song is a beautiful tribute to Sonido La Changa, who is, he's been a sonidero since 1968. And the song was created for him on his 50th anniversary. That's right. So a couple years ago of him being a sonidero, and he's so beloved in California that in the early 90s, when La Changa came to LA to perform, it actually turned into a riot. Just people were too excited. There were too many people who wanted to get into the place that he was performing. And that just shows the intensity and the love felt for Sonido La Changa, Ramon Rojo, and he goes by El Rey de Reyes, the King of Kings.
Wow, it's a big one. El Rey de Reyes. I mean, I love the fact that there can be like large scale parties like this, and things are happening, or things in the street, and I do wonder in the moment of this pandemic, that did this serve as an evolution of kind of saludo, kind of like the way that saludos were sent, or the way that cumbia sonidera was transmitted? Because I mean, we're in this moment again that is, we're yearning for connectivity, and that's a form of connectivity. And I do wonder like what'll come out of the other side of it. I mean, you're part of the evolution of this through Discos Rolas, the label that you co-founded with Ganas, and the work is pushing forward and pushing it into new ears and connecting. I know Discos Barba Azul, is on Broadway. Yourself, DJ Na, Asmara, Total Freedom, DJ Rupture, a lot of people who are connected to Vicente. And I think of these forms of music in Los Angeles are real kind of future forms of music that, even if they might not directly be taking something from that sound or influence in a direct way, it's sort of channeling into maybe the spirit, like what you hear doesn't leave your ears and your mind. So even this stuff subliminally. So it's nice. It's all cycling through in a lovely way. But have you seen it change? Have you seen through the pandemic, has it pushed forward new things? I know live streaming and stuff.
Live streaming, it's hard to, it feels hard to have perspective, but early on, I remember thinking, that DJs should be, or could pay attention to what sonideros have been doing for many years, and thinking about how, performing for people who are not physically in front of you is not something that's entirely new, and it's not, it wasn't invented during the pandemic. And we have kind of maybe not models, but examples and inspiration from the past. And one moment that I experienced with DJ Rupture when we were giving a talk and also doing a performance with Sonido Kumbala, who's a sonidero in New York City. There was probably 20 people in the audience. And then Sonido Kumbala, one of the people who worked with him, said, there's 10,000 people following us and watching it, watching the stream right now. So we were able to take questions from them, and it was inspiring and exciting. And I think, I feel like there's still a lot to learn from sonideros who are so adept at connecting people over long distances.
So if you've got some saludos you need to send out there, hop in the Facebook chat here for Grand Park, and feel free. We'll give some shout outs at the end. We will open up for questions near the end, but feel free to communicate with us. And I'm really fascinated, Ana Luisa. Can you talk a bit about Kulintang music? Is that the pronunciation?
Yeah, Kulintang. So Kulintang is Filipino gong music, and it's indigenous to the southern region of the Philippines. There's two distinct styles, Maguindanao and Maranao. I've studied it like a tiny bit. I'm a Sagittarius, so I like try everything for a little while and then I get bored and move on. But no, I didn't get bored from Kulintang, but I did study it for a little bit.
Study the
But
performance of it.
yeah, playing the gong
Amazing.
music. So it's a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's gamelan," because it looks
Hmm.
a lot like gamelan. Like the gongs look a lot like gamelan music. Gamelan just happens to be a bit more popular in the United States, largely due to CalArts and like artists who came over. But anyway, that's another topic. So
I've
yeah,
been
Kulintang
practicing.
music is what's that? Did I hear? Oh, okay, sorry. Online.
I think Xandão was suggesting we start a Kulintang ensemble here. I'm down.
Yeah, for sure. I wish I had all the instruments. Yeah, so
They're
it's
beautiful.
gong centered ensemble music indigenous to the Philippines, and there's been a lot of artists in America and Canada in the Philippines who have sort of taken it upon themselves to learn it um, and studied it. Largely, a lot in California. This artist, Danny Yan, who kind of brought it over and did ensembles in the Bay Area. So there's a rich tradition in California of artists kind of experimenting with it. And here in LA, actually, I don't know if Ron still lives here, but there's an artist, Cool who does like electronic Kulantan music, and then Gingy, who I'm sure has done some
Gingy's
dublab
amazing.
stuff. She plays Kulintang. And then, of course, like the epic Susie Ibarra, who's a huge influence on me, who I think is based in New York. She is more in like kind of the new music, contemporary avant-garde music scene. And she's a percussionist, and she does a lot of Kulintang music as well. And then, yeah, one of the songs on my mix by Mark Mirza, who is a Los Angeles currently stationed in Los Angeles, making experimental, kind of avant-garde, very textural ambient music. What one of the tracks on my mix, he plays Kulintang in a really kind of experimental, textural way,
Mm.
which I think is really interesting. Yeah, and as I'm sure other folks in this chat know, like, as in the diaspora, we're just kind of constantly researching and trying to find connections to place and to homeland and to indigeneity, and music is like one of those ways. And Kulintang is, yeah, it's epic. It's really cool. I mean, it functions, as far as I know. I'm not a scholar. I'm not an expert. I'm just a guy making music, but um, it functions in
Incredible
a lot
music.
of ways. It functions in a lot of the same ways, I think, as like gamelan music does. It's played at weddings, it's played at parties, it's played at funerals. It's ensemble music, it's generational music, and each, they're like handmade gongs, metal gongs that are like, in a certain, every set is in its own key,
Wow.
because
I
it's
think
like
we have a
they're not.
photo I believe we have a photo of a Kulintang ensemble that we can pull up and see the instruments because they are beautiful. And the ensemble approach and the kind of collective music making is really special. And I do think that the idea of, again, you mentioned the kind of the weddings or the specific kind of celebrations, which is incredible, but it's, the idea of then bringing it into, I think that's Mark's cover, which is beautiful. Or is that Vex? Which image
That's
is that? And
the cover image from Mark Mirza's album Desolation, where I
beautiful.
was gonna a track from that. Yeah, and I
That's
know
yeah. We,
is he's Filipino American. I think he picked up a set of Kulintang when he was traveling, and has been kind of experimenting with it in his studio in LA. And he plays it on this album that he released during the pandemic.
let's hear a bit of Lovelorn from Mark Mirza, and hear his use of Kulintang. Um, that's so refreshing and different. And we heard a little bit of Your Piece is a House earlier, which is gorgeous. We can dive back into that later.
Okay, so this is the Vex Ruffin track.
Which is also wonderful as well. Tapeng
It's all
Naman.
a tapestry of music. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
It's I saw that Mark was down at the installation and took some documentation of the installation, and I want to urge everybody, if you're out there in Los Angeles, you might be further away, but if you have the ability to travel to Los Angeles, you can visit Grand Park right in the heart of the city, and the installation Celebration Spectrum will be up again through May 31st, so you can check it out and hear all of these mixes. There's a schedule that's up so you can check out. Then we'll stay all day, 12 hours long, and really soak it all up. But I think there's Lovelorn floating up.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the little. I know he recorded the album at CAM residencies at Highland Park over during the pandemic. And yeah, really cool kind of. I love how there's, there's Mark, but then there's like White Boy Scream and, Anne Roxanne and like a lot of, Anna moved to New York, but there's a lot of LA based Filipino American artists, kind of experimenting, drawing from culture and OPM and all that stuff, but really kind of exploring more like new music, contemporary avant-garde, like Michaela Tobin, aka White Boy Scream, just released this beautiful Filipino noise opera. So there's a lot of experimentation happening in the community, which I find really
just like yourself, doing, making films, doing installations, and you mentioned Michaela Tobin, the almost songs of the Bakunawa, that there was a part of coaxial and all of this kind of like cross hybridization that I think that, the Maral and Xandão and like, and Anna, like everybody's kind of circling around slightly different but interconnected kind of communities and scenes that feed into each other. And again, I love the idea of somebody going to Michaela Tobin's, happening a gallery kind of performance and video thing, and then kind of following the trail and exploring deeper. But we also have, culinary riches here, this kind of renaissance of Filipino kind of cooking and very Filipino American, taking traditions, blending them, as well as you have video art and all these things. It's such a wonderful kind of time for all this to cross-pollinate, and the hybridity of it's incredible. You mentioned Vex Ruffin, and we heard a little bit of Vex's piece, which I'm a huge fan of Ryan Africa, aka Vex Ruffin's work. And again, Stone's Throw Records, somebody might come to a Stone's Throw party and then get totally exposed to OPM music through Vex Ruffin, and kind of follow this trail. Maybe we could hear a moment of Vex Ruffin's piece, Tapang Naman, and then I'd love to hear a comment or two on why you selected this. Shout outs to Vex Ruffin, family man, musician, artist.
Welcome,
I love this music. He first played me a piece years ago from this kind of ongoing project, and it just blew me away. And yeah, I feel like it's again the very contemporary aspects of this, but also folding in. We saw on the screen the cover, and you see the boxing in the background on the TV too. And I think that like there's this connections to culture and family, but also like the fact that somebody is like they're watching but they have headphones on, so maybe they're listening to some music while. But can you talk about what connected you to Vex's work and your thoughts on that, and also Maral and Xandão? Had you heard that music before? And I'd love to hear any kind of thoughts on the music as well.
Yeah, I mean, Vex is, he's holding it down really in LA, and I love his production skills. I feel like it's really almost childlike, and it's like just whimsical sort of experimentation and like buoyancy, and it's just like kind of feel good music. And then he sings in Tagalog, and I discovered his music. I've been making a lot of Tagalog centered mixes recently, kind of in my own journey of like learning Tagalog and connecting with family around learning Tagalog, and like writing Tagalog music with my mom and my uncles and stuff. And yeah, I mean, this album, it just bumps. I mean, it's on Stone's Throw. It's
so good.
It's so good, and it's like and it definitely. And I know Vex is a huge like OPM head, and he does a radio show on NTS of like all Filipino music, and I discover a lot of music through his show and his show that he does with Possible Music, and also through like DJs Joel Kizon and Les Talusan, who do OPM Sundays on Twitch. So yeah, it's all happening. It's all part of the tapestry. We're all out here doing our thing, and it's all good. It's all love.
There's a piece on Vex's record that was in Tagalog that's a Mabuhay Boy. And I remember hearing that and seeing, I know down the street from the dublab studio, there's a restaurant, I believe it's still there, Mabuhay, and like, seeing these kind of like, even just in a lyric or a song title, like having these kind of cues that you can pick up moving through Los Angeles. And, I love the idea that you can move through the city and you might, catch a snippet of Farsi next to Tagalog, next to Spanish, next to Zapotec, next to, and just kind of these kind of open channels.
Right here.
Sorry?
Oh, I said you can catch it right here in this Zoom room or wherever we are in the
Absolutely,
internet.
It's all over. Yeah, it's incredible. Any thoughts, Maral or Xandão, about some of this music, or had you experienced Kulintang music kind of knowingly or sought it out in the past?
I had the pleasure of seeing Gingy DJ and play Kulintang at the same time, and my mind was blown. I did not. That's not what you usually come when you're going to see a DJ. That's not what you expect. So that was my, I think, first experience of Kulintang, and I loved it.
She's so good. Yeah, she's made some incredible tunes that, just focused, the Kulintang kind of focused music that's amazing, and then so much more. The live, there's a party in Los Angeles, I mean, maybe on hold right now, but it's evolved into a label as well, and it's close to Maral's heart, called Disco Stan. And I think about that sort of the live performance, sometimes on traditional instruments, meeting, a digital kind of, instruments, or a cute, Ableton controller or something. Maral, can you talk about Disco Stan and why that was important in your kind of connection to the city and musical evolution?
Yeah, I mean, Disco Stan was really the beginning of me feeling super connected with LA, was going to a talk that Arshia had put on about this ethnomusicologist, field recorder, Aisha Ali. And she's an amazing field recorder and also dancer, and she did a bunch of amazing recordings in the 70s, and one of the first female, like, field recorders out there. So, I went to this talk not knowing anything about disco stand, just being interested in the topic. And then after hearing Arshia speak, I was like, wow, I need to talk to this person. And I'm usually shy, so it took a lot of like confidence building to go up to Arshia and chat with her. But then after that, she invited me to disco stand, and I started getting to play disco stand parties and seeing, this music that I grew up with being played to like a wide audience of all different types of people, from different areas of the Middle East to, American people, and just feeling like, wow, there's room for me to share my culture here in Los Angeles as well. Because before that, I was just sharing with my friends everything that I found. And I'd be like, can I just show you this one Iranian song, please? And then like I just talk over and over about Iranian music to my friends, and that was like it. But then with Disco Stand, I was like, wow, there's actually an audience for this, and I can kind of explore my roots in a more outward way. So, I had been playing Iranian music in my DJ sets before that, but then this just made me feel more confident in exploring that a lot more. And yeah, just going to those parties was so great. They just create such an amazing space to also experiment. And I think that really allowed me to kind of be like, wow, I can kind of really delve deeper into it and share what I discover as I'm discovering it.
Yeah, and such a space of so one of their taglines is from Beirut to Bangkok via Bombay, and so it's sort of this kind of wide umbrella that is regionally specific, but also the region that there's so much influence that moved through it. I mean, you mentioned earlier this kind of idea of kind of, even through sad history and warfare, but the way, Arab influence and, how these things start to commingle and kind of interact and intersect and clash at times. But there's sort of this like beautiful coexistence and commingling on the dance floor where you can hear something, Egyptian kind of, like a Rai music next to, a Bollywood piece. Arsha Haq also has a piece in the Celebration Tapestry and really covered some beautiful ground. So she has a 30-minute mix that's part of the installation at Grand Park. And you were in Virginia prior to Los Angeles, and coming to LA, that party obviously was probably a little later in your time here, I imagine, but there's also this cultural epicenter of, the Iranian diaspora and Iranian American kind of community that's very strong here. And you found yourself connecting to spaces where you could actually buy tapes and music. Can you talk a bit about actually being able to have these hubs to find some of the Iranian, the Persian classical music, as well as kind of more contemporary?
Yeah, I mean, before this, I would have to go get my music from Iran. So whenever I'd go to Iran, I'd grab a few CDs and bring back some of my parents' old tapes and stuff like that. And in Virginia, we have a really great cultural institution that celebrates Persian classical music. And my dad actually started this like group in DC that they celebrate poetry and music, and all his friends are like deep into music. So I've always had access to it to a degree, but never really on my own, like I never had a chance to just kind of explore on my own. So then coming to LA, I had a chance to kind of explore my version of what I want to hear from classical music, which is more raw, more folk music, So I found this music store called the Music Box in Westwood. Sadly, it's closed down, which is like very, very sad to me. But, it was such an amazing place and had been there since like the 70s. And the owner had met all the classic Persian singers, all the best people. So I would go just, peruse around there and find whatever I wanted. And the owner always was trying to recommend like more polished sounding, newer stuff. And I was like, give me the olds, give me the anthropologies, you know what I mean? So I've discovered a lot of new singers and new sounds that I wasn't aware of before moving to LA, just from my own discoveries, because my parents wouldn't have thought to show me this type of music, or my it's just like not something people really are thinking about. It's not modern.
I love this like seeking of music, and I think that I know Xandão is a cultural anthropologist and working in ethnomusicology and stuff. Like there's these ways to explore so broadly from within Los Angeles, and I think I love this idea of the kind of seeking the kind of discarded in a way. And I know going to like Artesia in Little India and having people pull milk crates out from the dusty back room where it's like putting the old cases of mango pulp juice and stuff like that, and like, oh, you want these? And this idea of being able to re-explore the sounds that are both kind of alive in the air but also that are sitting just below the surface and doing the good work. Shall we hear a piece called Dashti, and then you can maybe talk a little bit about that specific piece and its influence? So maybe we'll hear Dashti from Mahmoud Mahmoudi Kansari.
از زندگانیم گله دارد جوانیم شرمنده جوانی از این زندگانیم امید منم آخ جان آخ جان
Wow. I actually getting chills up my spine hearing what a voice, so beautiful. I mean, I can understand why one would gravitate towards that piece of music. But can you tell us about your experience with that music? And
Yeah, I mean, this was just a random CD that I found in Music Box. It's part of an anthropology series on avaz, which is a type of vocal singing, Iranian classical vocal singing, and it incorporates that kind of trill sound that you heard him doing a bit. But yeah, that's Dashti is a modal, it's like a modal melody repertoire thing in Persian classical music. I'm not explaining it properly, but it's something that's a melody that's been passed down through ancient times, and this is this dude's interpretation of it, and the musician's interpretation of it. And that's what I find so special about Persian classical music, is that everyone is reinterpreting the same repertoire, and this is the repertoire that's been passed down through ages and ages and ages. So that specific track I sampled a lot for my album Push, and specifically for this song called Azizaman. It's on my album. And so for that one, I wanted to reinterpret that repertoire of Dashti in my own way. So I ended up, just sampling that it's funny because I have another track on that album called Dashti, and that's like another me sampling that same song. So I've just heavily sampled that song because it's so beautiful. I love the spacing of everything, like the little pauses, and just like, it's just like draws you in.
Well, I hope that the owner of Music Box is out there and not throwing the music away. And hopefully we'll reopen again, because these things should be available and heard. But likewise too, Anna Luisa was talking about the various kind of the expanded community of the Filipino American community, whether it's Vex Ruffin or Gingy, but there's also people like Omid who you're friends with, and people who came together in the Disco Stand banner on the dance floor, but also in other conversations. There's a really beautiful group of Iranian American kind of diaspora here, working in many different levels in many different ways, whether it's bringing traditional calligraphy through to the future, or running record shops that stock records that are relevant and from the kind of culture. Let's hear a bit of Avaze Del. This is a brand new piece of yours. And I should also say Push is such an incredible record. Go get it on Leaving Records, Maral's album. I love it so much. But maybe we can hear, this is Maral, Avaz Edel, brand new piece. So beautiful. I love this. We're giving these laptop speakers a run for their money. I'm on a laptop at least, so I hope everybody else is on like a better sound system. But it's so good, and I can imagine the music that we've kind of heard throughout this conversation. I mean, in my ears, it coexists so well, and there's little things. It's all a conversation. The music of the world, and we're so fortunate again within Los Angeles to have such access and connection, not only to, archival historic music, but also to really fresh contemporary music and traditions that have new life through new people's experience. Any thoughts from any of you of, some of the stuff we've heard, or curiosities or questions, amongst the three of you that have kind of come up?
I just want to mention La Cita Bar because, we talked about cumbia, and actually La Cita was the first place I ever went for a show when I moved to LA. I went to go see Total Freedom, and it blew my mind, and at the same time made me feel like, wow, I kind of found a place where I belong. Or sonically, I felt like, oh, there's people doing these things. Because again, I was also exploring experimental music at the time in Virginia and not really having much of a support system for that. So to see Total Freedom DJ the way he was really made me feel comfortable again in pushing my DJing as well. And, also then going to La Cita and seeing a cumbia band play, a week later. So it's like that. I think that bar really influenced me and like impacted, and it was a great example of what LA can be. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And it's right next to Grand Central Market, and I love telling people, like, walking, if often friends from out of town, bringing them and having this food of the world, and then being able to walk by, especially like on a Sunday midday, and in the middle of the day you walk in and there's this cumbia dance party happening. You're suddenly going from bright Los Angeles sunlight to dark, beautiful bar room. You're about to say something, Xandão?
That's a couple things. La Cita, I also fell in love with it, and that's where we had the release party for Un Saludo. I was very happy to have it there. And somewhat like you, Maral, when I first moved to LA, one of the parties where I started to feel like, oh, I'm home, or I've found some of my people, and be inspired by what was happening here, was Wildness, when it was happening at Silver Platter with Nguzu Nguzu and Total Freedom and many others. And it was just, that was one of the kind of the ways that I started to hear cumbia in a very creative, filtered take on it. And for Grupo Jejeje, which is one of the groups that we've released on Discos Rolas, the first project. One of the producers is Iranian British Arabalero, and cumbia resonated with him, and he has his kind of own training as a musician is in Persian classical music and calligraphy, and somehow he brings that to bear on making Grupo Hehehe.
I feel
That's
like I
amazing.
will
I mean,
propose
yeah,
maybe we do new party discos rolas stan kulang tang.
there
That's
we
our new
go.
party.
Rhymes.
It's interesting because
Anna,
yeah, I feel like
Can't
that
really talk about.
cumbia. Go on.
oh, sorry, go,
Oh, I was just gonna say
Maral, sorry, you were
about
saying something.
without shouting out Mustache Mondays, which was like a
Yes.
long
Totally.
running
Yep.
underground queer party, and like our beloved Nacho, who passed away in the past few years. But yeah, I feel like my access to cumbia was like queer cumbia parties,
Yep.
and definitely at La Cita and in San Francisco where I used to live. And yeah, again, like another reason why we all love LA is like all of these traditional forms can be taken and revered and honored, and also like
Yeah,
queered and um,
totally.
taken underground and remixed, without losing its reverence for the tradition. And so I love that. Yeah, we all have like, whenever like the bar La Cita is mentioned, like we all have these like warm feelings and this like memories of being on that patio, and like, you know, all of the different rhythms and flavors that have emanated, from all these different underground subcultures and traditional cultures, which is like, yeah, that's why, we all love LA.
And multiple forms of art as well. I mean, Anna, Luisa, your arts practice is so broad, and I think that all of you are involved in various things and ways to kind of express yourselves. And I love the idea that somebody who's a filmmaker, a poet, might come to a party, an incredible queer cumbia party, and come out the other end just super, inspired to do something from their own kind of heritage and background, but again, you kind of carrying that inspiration and spark, with what they heard forward. And I think of the idea of safe spaces, for communities, and thinking of the Silver Platter, La Cita, things, things that existed, Mustache Mondays, different happenings, but also safe spaces for music, and Los Angeles has a spirit of experimentation that needs to be preserved. And I think that's really important, to have a safe space to blend things and have things kind of like not be afraid to clash, but then find when they beautifully merge together and form something new is equally important. I can't wait to get back to that in person. We had a few questions pop up. This one's a hard one. What's your favorite song in your celebration spectrum mix? It's like choosing a favorite child, right? But that's a hard one. I don't know. I almost fear anybody. But yeah, we heard a couple little snippets. I would just say go down there and hear them all. They're all beloved.
Yeah,
They're all
yeah,
favorite.
they're all yeah.
And I've been down there at different points, and I just love the idea of, how, in the morning we start with this kind of sonic land acknowledgement with Davina Two Bears, who hosts the Indigenous Voice program on Dublab. And I invited her to create a mix of Indigenous Los Angeles and Native California music. And so for people to kind of come in there, and again, this is a physical and an artistic space, but it exists in a space that's been, lived in and called home by others for many years. And so honoring that and being able to have that, but that moves into, Rada V from the M Mars Collective going into, morning raga mix that's so gorgeous. And so just moving throughout the day and being in that space, having different experiences is wonderful. There's another question. What's the track or mix on your playlist that always gets you vibing or dancing no matter what? I like that question. More, is there a piece that is your like most favorite kind of, not that I didn't like the other question, apologies, but this kind of more focused view of that. Is there a piece that would be like your number one recommendation for people to check out? It's also hard. I say check them all out. dublab.com/celebration tapestry. If you click that, preferably on a laptop computer as opposed to a mobile phone, will bring you to the Mixcloud collection of all the playlists, all the mixes. You can have 12 hours of music, and we're playing these in that space. They're on loop, but it really is meant to start at 10 a.m. and go until 10 p.m. So you could really, I urge you, make a day of it on that timing. Click it at 10 a.m. and hear 12 hours of music played in the background or put to the foreground. Talma de Freitas, who's part of the collection, who's incredible artist of Brazilian heritage living here in Los Angeles. She had her birthday party down there a couple weeks ago and brought friends down to dance under the tapestry, and a really fun, kind of way to celebrate, which is beautiful. Yeah, I think any other thoughts amongst you beautiful participants about your space here in Los Angeles and what you hope others might kind of gain from listening deeply to the city around them?
Yeah, I mean, just gratitude, gratitude and humility. I think my internet might be cutting out, but thankfulness. And I really liked that you brought up like the archival nature of what we all do. And I mean, like Frosty, you as a DJ and like a culture maker and a culture sort of forwarder, whatever. My brain doesn't work, but and Maral, I love your music, and Xandão. Like we're all sort of archiving culture and archiving connections between culture and contemporary and past. And I think that that's really important work that's being done, outside of the academia, outside of largely like, well-funded institutions, and like in a really grassroots way. And I think that kind of archival nature of our work, that's really organic, and it just needs to continue so that like our ancestors who are 100 years from now will listen to Maral's vinyl and listen to Frosty's Celsius drop mixes and like know what it was like to be in Los Angeles in 2021 and to have relationship to Los Angeles and the world as it was in ancient times. So I think it's all really special, and long live all of us, mabuhay, all of us, so we can continue.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I'm excited for LA to start opening up and then like people celebrating more, because I do think that active celebration is so exciting to walk by. Like my favorite thing is just walking down the street and like I'll hear some bass and I'll be like, I gotta go get to that bass and hear what they're listening to, and I'll try to like Shazam it, and it's like some like Armenian track, or like, yeah, just like sometimes it's not Shazamable and I'll be very depressed about it and think about it for a while. But yeah, it's like, I think that aspect of that I miss the most actually when things shut down was LA sonically, you know what I mean? Like I miss the sonics of LA when everything shut down, and I was like, I just want to walk down a busy street and hear like the music from the stores, or just like hear people celebrating in their own way. And I'm excited for that to be back and to go bass hunting.
Oh yes.
Going bass hunting and paying attention to the sound is being able to move to it, but move to it with other people. So being able to dance again is one of the things that I've missed the most for the last year plus. So dancing again, and not just listening to music, but feeling it. And especially the bass has a way of entering your body. So that's what I'm thrilled for.
Beautiful. I can't wait for all of these things. Maybe we'll convince Grand Park to have a Celebration Spectrum kind of revisitation where we can all DJ there together in person in Grand Park and have a big celebration. I know people are ready for it. Thank you so much to each of you for not only being here today, but for all the incredible things that you do and all these ways that you really invest, from deep within and put so much energy into sharing this creative spirit and the music that is so part of your heritage, but also being able to synthesize these kind of broader heritages and kind of fold them together in such a beautiful way. I couldn't imagine Los Angeles without each of you, and so happy to be able to share here today. Thank you so much.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you, dublab
Big
and Tanya, Adi,
Yay.
everybody who did.
It was so fun, and I urge people, there's still a few more days. We Rise, and I should say it's, this is Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health, and, in this challenging past, several months, I think that we've all been challenged at different points, but we've also kind of had a renewed sort of focus on what we love, this idea of being together, dancing together, spending time together. And so this is our form of being able to kind of pay tribute to that and the connectivity. And we hope that people can come down to the Celebration Spectrum. whywerise.la is kind of the hub to find out about that. You can also visit dublab.com and dive into many different offerings from each of these incredible humans that have been here tonight. Again, Anna, Luisa, Petrisko, Maral, and Xandão, thank you so very much. Thank you. And thanks to all of you out there listening and who joined us. Lots of love to the whole Grant Park team, also to Lisette and Hinaro on the back end here, making sure things are running smoothly. Thank you so much. We're over and out. Peace. Yay!
Bye.